industry. This is an emergency. And we have to be very clear about something else. Our goal is not to make this rally a political one, but we will not and we cannot deny the reality that our brown bodies are politicized every day. The bodies of our sisters are politicized every day. El Paso is politicized and criminalized every day, whether we like it or not. We are in an emergency, and therefore we must have a sense of urgency. We cannot waste our precious time debating people who are committed to misunderstanding. But at the same time, we must do our part to inform and educate our brothers and sisters, our communities, and everybody in between about this crisis that we face together. So without further ado, I want to start the program, and again, I want to thank you all so much from the bottom of my heart for coming out here. This, again, is just the beginning. When we stand together as a community, there is absolutely nothing that we cannot accomplish. So the first person I would like to introduce you to is Miguel and Priscilla, who will dive a little bit deeper into the Green New Deal and how we are fighting for change in our community. Thank you.
We are living in a climate emergency, and therefore small incremental policy solutions are no longer enough. If we want to fix the solution of climate change, we have to first define the problem, and we have to define the scope of our solution.
Last November, a group of Sunrise Movement volunteers held a sit-in protest in the office of Democratic Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, and their message was clear. We don't have time for incremental change. We need a transformational, intersectional program that can address the climate crisis without oppressing minorities and the poor. Ever since then, the idea of the Green New Deal has been championed by AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and has been endorsed by virtually every Democratic presidential candidate in the primaries. The term has exploded in popularity since then, and this idea has been the source of hope for all of us in a world that is being engulfed by flames. It has also been the relentless target of ridicule from right-wing news sources such as Fox News. Now let me be clear. The Green New Deal is not a partisan issue. The Republicans have definitely not tolerated it, but neither has the Democratic establishment. This is why the Sunrise Movement protested in Nancy Pelosi's office instead of Donald Trump's. We believe, however, unequivocally that the Green New Deal is a vision that transcends party partisanship. It is an idea that can uplift humanity to overcome its greatest barrier that we are facing, which is the climate crisis.
So we will continue to discuss the Green New Deal, what it means for us and what it can be. But for now, I wanted to introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker is part of an organization that has been a model example of grassroots organizing around environmental equity for years. Here to speak on the environmental challenges she faces in her community and the work she has been doing with Las Familias Unidas de Chamizal, please welcome Kitty Villegas.
Hi everybody, my name is Catherine Villegas. I'm currently a student at UTEP and I'm a proud high school graduate from Bowie High School, 2019. My little brother's original elementary school was closed because a white man with power decided it was cheaper to stuff 351 students into a toxic school. While all of this was going on, they decided to not only close one of our schools, but two of our neighborhood schools. 700 children with disabilities, families that were forced to choose between schools with high amounts of lead in its playground or a school with a highway right in front of it. But only in the barrio schools, right? And there's a word for that, and that word is environmental racism. I feel like Nobody wants to talk about this, or nobody here at least, because we've been beaten down so much, constantly beaten down, and that's made us to believe that we should be used to it, that we should be used to all the scraps that they're giving us. But we should stand up. We should stand up and realize that all that's changed over the years is the last number of every year as years go by. We need to stop accepting the scraps that they give us and start demanding the justice that we deserve. We have our right to clean air. We have our right to clean, free environments for our children to play in.
And Kitty touched on it. It's environmental racism. It's environmental injustice. And environmental injustice, for those of you who do not know, it's this basic concept, that each one of us as individuals produce a certain amount of waste, a certain amount of trash. But when it comes to living with that trash and living with that waste, we don't have to do that. We get to send our trash somewhere else, in someone else's backyard. And when you look at where those landfills are, when you look at where those hotspots of pollution and oil refineries are, they are always in low-income, poor communities with women of color and people who do not have the right or the means to defend themselves and stand up. But because we don't see it in our backyard, it's sort of in the back of our mind. And that's what's happening today in the community Chamizal, El Barrio Chamizal. We have elementary schools that are next to toxic waste sites. That is unacceptable today, and it will definitely be unacceptable in the future. So thank you so much, Kitty, for speaking on that. Please get connected to Familias Unidas de Chamizal. They do amazing work. Our next speaker is part of the Detained Migrant Solidarity Committee, and will speak about the connection between climate change and our immigration crisis. This is an important connection to make because El Paso is at the forefront of both of those two issues. We are at the forefront of both of those crises happening here in the border. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to Destiny. Give it up.
But we need to familiarize ourselves with the environmental reasons why people migrate, because that is not something that will happen in the future. That is something that is happening already. As I'm sure you know, climate change causes everything from droughts and wildfires to increased rainfall and flooding, unbearable heat, and dangerous snowstorms. Rising sea levels and more frequent catastrophic hurricanes. And in Guatemala, fisher people are catching fewer fish, and droughts make it almost impossible for people to grow crops, and by extension, nearly impossible to earn a living. Looking forward, Honduras will see flood increases by 60%, and by the end of my lifetime, El Salvador will have lost up to 28% of its coastline. These are just some examples. According to the World Bank, within the next 30 years, Latin America, Sub-Saharan Africa, and Southeast Asia will likely see an additional 143 million people who are forced to evacuate as a result of climate change. Now, I want to be clear. People have been moving freely from land to land long before countries or borders have ever existed. Migration is a human right, and we should not be demanding people justify their existence here. But forced migration, as a result of the United States, in part, being one of the world's largest emitters of greenhouse gas, is unacceptable. We must right our wrongs and stop capitalism from placing profits over people. We must demand that legislators pass the Green New Deal so that we can prevent further catastrophe from happening. Not tomorrow, today.
Yes!
And yeah, well, exactly what Destiny was talking about. The immigration crisis is here. It's happening today. It's not happening tomorrow. And it's been happening for a very long time. So we want to make sure that we are connecting these dots. And she also hit the nail on the head when she mentioned capitalism. I hate to be the one to say it. I hate to be the one to ruffle the feathers, but that's what it is, folks. Capitalism says it's okay to destroy our planet so long as you make $1. It is okay to pay women less so long as you make $1. It is okay that people are dying for not having healthcare so long as insurance companies make $1. These institutional problems are all connected, and we need to make sure that as organizers, we are connecting the dots and we are putting the injustice at the forefront of our work. So thank you so much, Destiny, for connecting immigration justice with environmental justice. The next person I want to introduce is a very vocal and very vigilant environmental advocate here in El Paso. They have been working with the organization, the Frontera Water Protectors and the Frontera Water Alliance. There's some of the signs behind us. So I want to pass over the mic now to Crystal, who will be talking about her work with Frontera Water Protectors. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. How is everyone?
Doing good.
Yeah, so I'm Crystal. I'm with the Frontera Water Protectors, and I'm glad to say there's a few of us out there, and it's great to be out here, and it's great to see all your faces. I wanted to start us off with a chant. Is that cool?
Yes.
All right. So your part is rise up, fight back. All right.
Okay.
When our water, land, and air is being fracked, what do we do?
Rise up, fight back.
When our government protects oil and gas over people, what do we do?
Rise up, fight back.
When our planet is dying right underneath our nose at the hands of these corporations, what do we do?
Rise up, fight back.
Your part is climate justice, and then now, okay? So I'm gonna say, what do we want?
Climate justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Climate justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
Right on. Thank you so much.
Woo!
I'm a climate activist because I couldn't stand the disgusting, painful feeling I would get when I would feel our Mother Earth dying. And it just bothers me to the core. I get even nauseous when I think about it. And when our land and air and water is being contaminated as we speak, I believe it is our responsibility as human beings to protect Mother Earth, to protect our water, to protect our land, to protect our air. We need to leave this planet healthy for our future generations, for our kids. You all agree with that?
Yeah.
I feel a connection with Mother Earth, and I'm sure that you guys do too, because you're here today, right? So, do you remember the battle at Standing Rock?
Oh yeah.
When Standing Rock, where all those indigenous people were from everywhere had gathered there, and they were fighting to protect their water. Do you remember that?
Water is life.
Water is life, definitely. Miniwichoni, yeah, that's right. Well, it doesn't matter where you're from or what color you are or what you are or not. You need that first medicine. You need water, right? We all need water. And why do you think those people that create destruction, those oil and gas companies, everybody that's creating destruction in some form, why do you think they don't feel that connection? What's going on there? And it's a lot deeper than money or greed. It doesn't just stop there. There's something. They have a disconnect with Mother Earth. If you feel a connection with Mother Earth, you're gonna protect it, aren't you? You're gonna feel responsible to protect it.
Yes.
If you know why water is important to you. I don't know if any of you have ever gone without water or without food or without anything like that. But it's hard, and you realize right away what's really important, right? It's not our Instagram profiles, it's not our Facebook profiles, it's nothing like that. There's some very basic medicines on this planet that we need to protect, and it's all that gives us life. I've spoken with local and state politicians, I've written them, I've called them, I've been appointed to committees by them, and all this and that, to talk about and demand that we need to protect our Mother Earth and that we need to act now. However, I think that sometimes we need to go a little harder than that, and that's when we need to do some peaceful civil disobedience, direct action, disruptions. And the point of that is because we want to violate a law that is unjust.
What we have is he is with the El Paso Peace Presence, and he is going to be talking about how the military-industrial complex is also severely connected to our environmental justice. So please give it up for Peter.
Buenas tardes. I'm glad to be here with so many people committed to defend the nature that God has given us. I've got two hats. One of them is as clergy, and the other one is as veteran from World War II. And of course, we were part of the problem back then. For the past 46 years, I have seen the effect of U.S. military policy towards Latin America. I've worked in Latin America over the last 46 years, back and forth, live actually in Ciudad Juarez for the last 24 years. This policy has supported U.S. and Canadian corporations mining and logging the forests and the mountains of those countries. Corporations take, often rob, these resources. They leave the native peoples to deal with the scarcity and contamination of land and water. They arm and advise the hardline regimes to crush any protest of the peoples. Right now in Mexico, concessions to corporations are robbing the people of their water. It's not just nature behind the forest fires in Amazon. The new president of Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro, a captain in the Iron Fist military government of the 70s and the 80s, now governs that military mode.
The human impact is incredible from our wars. Aside from the refugee displacement, their death and injury, there's pollution, asthma in children is rising, cancer and birth defects are on the rise in all of these Middle Eastern countries. Now think about that. If that's happening to these civilians in Afghanistan, Iraq, Somalia, Yemen, it's also affecting our soldiers. We want to be certain our soldiers are treated and taken care of also. What can you do? First of all, I'd like to suggest that you stay better informed. Find independent journalists. There are so many today you can follow. Unfortunately, the mainstream media, the corporate media, whatever you want to call it, is mostly supportive of war. And it's very difficult to believe their propaganda. Find some sources. I'll be glad to provide you with some I've been listening to for years, and then you can listen or read and make up your own mind. The most important thing is try to stop thinking of human beings and other countries as your enemies.
Yeah.
If you read everything, all the media reports, they automatically assume that all these countries are out to get us. That is not necessarily true. There will all
135. We have 135 oil and petroleum refineries in the United States. The single largest concentration of refineries are refineries in 30 states, Texas dominating the U.S. refinery. Texas with 47 operating refineries. Annually, the U.S. crude oil production reached a record level of 10.96 million barrels per day in 2018. I did the math, that's about 4 trillion barrels of oil a year. This is about 40 million barrels more than the average peacetime military usage. By the way, 144 million barrels makes 395,000 barrels per day, almost as much as the daily energy consumption of Greece. Who is this? The US military, the biggest purchaser of oil in the world. We want to let go of coal, which produces carbon, to move on to extracting natural gas, which produces methane. Methane is 80 times more potent than the greenhouse gas of carbon. My family and I live a mile and a half away from Western refining, and the imagery of those stacks bothers me every day. Does anyone know the term intersectionality? Miguel mentioned it earlier. It's a term used in academic settings to describe the complex issues that face every human in our society. Our many identities, both societal and economic, cultural, anything. I, for example, am Irish, Mexican, lower, middle working class, a member of the LGBT community. These identities make me who I am. Climate change is also an intersectional issue. It is a complex issue. My family used to wash and play in the Rio Grande. Now it's gone, walled off. My grandfather tells of cottonwoods being plowed away. He tells of picking cotton along the river as a 5-year-old and how giant machines have now taken his place, the hands of black and brown people. GMO cotton is farmed to this day in a now completely different, non-fertile and poisoned riverbed. We don't want to drive fossil fuel cars. The choice has been taken away from the majority of us American people. Senator Bernie Sanders has said it, if our government prioritized the environment like a bank, we would have bailed out this environment by now.
How is it possible that El Paso is the 10th sunniest city in the world, yet less than 3% of our electricity comes from the sun right above us? Right now, right here, is the pending sale. Currently is the pending sale, as I speak, of our community's electric company to JP Morgan Private Equity New York bankers. It is up to us living in this moment to block this sale and act in the best interest of several of our future generations to come. The responsibility lies on us, every one of you right here, right now, to call out to our state senator, our state reps, and all of our city council members to block this sale of our community's electric company. Our city council will be voting on this in the upcoming months, and it is the responsibility of all of us to demand that our city council represent the voice of our community on blocking this sale. The for-profit Wall Street corporation that is El Paso Electric is trying to dupe us into believing that this sale benefits our community by stating that EP Electric customers will receive $21 million in rate credits, which in real terms equates to an insulting $1.36 in credits per month to each customer on a per capita basis. Let me repeat that. $1.36 per month. I ask you, El Paso, do you want our electric company in the hands of New York Wall Street JP Morgan bankers, whose job it is to solely maximize the return on their investments as shareholders? Or do you want an electric company whose job it is to protect and promote the interests of us, the current and future citizens of our city? Imagine I stood here in front of you as the mayor of our community and declared that taking control of our community's water company was not the highest or best use of our resources. How would you feel if our water company was sold to New York bankers whose job it is to maximize their profits? What position do you think that would put our water resources in? The municipality of Austin has owned its electric utility company since 1895. And San Antonio has owned theirs since 1942. It is long past due for El Paso to take the necessary steps to own our own electric utility company. There is no place for failed city government officials like our Republican Mayor DeMargo, City Manager Tommy Gonzalez, and Economic Development Director Jessica Herrera. We need bold city leadership who believes in our capability to manage our electric company and lead us into 100% renewable energy power. There is no place for our current city leadership that looks to promote the greedy and corrupt, short-sighted interests of their pocketbooks or those of the power players in El Paso. El Paso, I repeat to you, it is under our watch, right here, right now, under our responsibility to put the pressure on our state and city representatives to block the sale of our community's electric company and to make the only logical right choice to move towards a 100% renewable energy-powered community. It is an extreme sense of urgency that I have and believe in this. We don't put El Paso on the map by giving tens of millions of tax incentives to billionaire-owned downtown property owners or companies such as Topgolf and Great Wolf Lodge Water Park. We put El Paso on the map by taking a bold stand against those interests and doing what's right for us right now and the many generations in the future ahead of us. The responsibility lies on us. I ask you once again, will we take the stand to do what's right? The decision is ours to make, and the livelihood of our future generations depends on it. Thank you.